All right, it looks like it is noon on the dot, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Well, I first want to welcome everyone who has joined us today for this webinar to learn about the Master of Legal Studies in Cybersecurity and Data Privacy. We are a smaller group here today, so with any questions that you have, please feel free to answer or ask them at any time. I'll be monitoring different chat boxes, but if you want to raise your hand, I'll monitor that as well so we can see you. But before we begin, see if I can change the slide. I'd like to start with some introductions of who's going to be speaking with you today and what voices you'll hear. So I'll start with myself. I'm Julie DiBiasio. I'm the Director of Graduate Studies and Professional Development here at Cleveland Marshall College of Law at Cleveland State University. I feel very fortunate to have with me today two professors of our school that we have. Professor John Plecnik is actually the director of the Masters of Legal Studies program, so you will work with him throughout your time as a student here. So I'm going to turn it over to John quickly to give a brief introduction of himself and welcome you.
Julie, thank you so much. I do want to take a moment to congratulate and welcome all of you to our program and remind you that when you study at the Cleveland Marshall College of Law, you're not just at a law school with over 120 years of history in Ohio, you're also joining the broader university, Cleveland State University, where over 5,000 graduate students from all over the world take us as their academic home. And you'll have the resources, not just of Cleveland Marshall, but all of Cleveland State when you study with us. So as the director of the Master of Legal Studies program, I really do want to welcome and congratulate you, not just to law school, but to the entire academic family of Cleveland State.
Thank you, John. And we also have with us Professor Brian Ray. And Brian is the director for the Center for Cybersecurity and Privacy Protection here at Cleveland Marshall College of Law. He is also a professor within this Masters of Legal Studies program. So you're very lucky to get to speak with him now, and you'll be very lucky to have him when you're taking classes. So Brian, I'm going to toss it over to you to do a quick introduction of yourself.
Thanks, Julie. Welcome, everybody. As Julie mentioned, I direct and I co-founded our Center for Cybersecurity and Privacy Protection, where this program is housed. And I also developed this program, which is adapted from a program that we offer through live courses to our JD students and also to our LLM students within our other programs. And I'm very excited that you guys are interested in hearing more about this program. And as we'll talk a little bit later in the webinar, with everything that's been happening recently, privacy has really come to the forefront as a concern in the COVID-19 response. And so the job space was already growing rapidly, and it's just going to continue to grow. And we'll get to that a little bit more after we give some more details. Back to you, Julie.
Great, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. This is such a topical industry right now, and it's important for all of us to understand the implications of cybersecurity going forward. So I too am interested to hear about that. So before we begin, I want to go over briefly what we will discuss today. So you had an opportunity to hear who's on the call with you. I'm going to introduce you a little bit to Cleveland Marshall College of Law at Cleveland State University. Who are we? Where are we located? We'll get into why Cleveland Marshall's online MLS program, how we feel it'll help you and your career. We'll go over the program, so we'll go over the courses that you'll take. We'll talk about the admissions process and any next steps if you would like to start this upcoming fall. And then we'll end with a question and answer. But I do want to mention again, like I said at the top, if you have any questions, please at any time feel free to chat them in the chat box or the question and answer box, or raise your hand and I will call on you. We can make this as interactive as you would like. So who are we? Who is Cleveland Marshall College of Law at Cleveland State University? Well, we are an iconic 122-year-old student-centered law school committed to both excellence and opportunity, social justice, and producing lawyers and professionals who are leaders in their field. We are located in the heart of downtown Cleveland, Ohio, and I encourage you, whether you are near or far, if you haven't had the opportunity to visit Cleveland or Cleveland State University, I would love to set that up to have you come visit our law school. Obviously, that is not available right now, but when we are able back on campus, I think it would be great for you. Just because this is an online program doesn't mean you have access to all the amenities that Cleveland State University has to offer. A little bit more about our law school. Our mission at our law school is learn law, live justice, and we are your law school for life. And we truly believe that. And I think you'll find that through our student-centered approach, we truly provide the opportunity for our grads to become successful legal professionals in whatever field you choose. And we actually created the first Masters of Legal Studies program in our region, so we have a lot of experience in this space, and I'm just very excited to welcome you here today. John, I did want to toss it back over to you to see if there's anything you wanted to add about Cleveland State University or Cleveland Marshall College of Law as a whole.
Well, I do think that it's worth noting that as you're preparing to engage in an online program, it's important that you have the ability to do research flexibly and have access to substantial resources from a library or research facilities. And I think it's worth noting that Cleveland Marshall actually has the largest law library, both in terms of collection and size, in the state of Ohio. We are a federal repository, which means we take and we hold all the resources of the federal government, including laws and regulations, as a backup in the case of emergencies. So it's a very significant library for public safety, but also that gives you much stronger research resources. And I have to say that the director of our law library, Professor Collins, has done an excellent job always in making these resources available online. So for those of you who intend to always study via distance, you certainly are going to have that facilitated for you, and we will have our library reach out to you so that you can access all the databases and resources that you would digitally. But once things start to reopen, we also have incredible facilities, and every one of you, while you're studying online, has the same rights to our resources as students who typically study face-to-face. And so if you want to, if you're a regional or a local student, you are always invited to take advantage of the library's physical resources as well.
Great, thank you, John. And so without further ado, I'm going to toss it over to Brian, Professor Brian Ray, and he's going to talk to you in depth about this program. He'll talk about some more topical information with cybersecurity and data privacy and what's happening in the world as we speak. So Brian, at any time when you want me to change slides, please let me know, but I will toss it over to you.
Thanks, Julie. So as I mentioned earlier in the program, we're in a new situation that is bringing to the forefront a lot of the issues and many of the skill sets that you'll acquire in this program. But just to give a brief overview, we're a cybersecurity and data privacy program that sits within a law school. And what that means is our distinctive strengths and unique value in this space is that we give you expertise in the legal materials, the policy materials, and really the analytical structure that goes into identifying what cybersecurity and data privacy risks exist in any field and in any environment. In this program, our Master of Legal Studies program and the general certificate that we offer to JD and LLM students, we then integrate into that distinctive strength a technical grounding in cybersecurity and data privacy. And then on top of that, we have some strategic discussions, which are always integral to legal analysis anyways, but strategic discussions and information around how businesses need to view this risk and how to analyze and how to decide where you're going to calibrate your own risk appetite and decide how to respond. And all of those things are critically important within cybersecurity. And the real difference for our program versus many other standard programs or technically focused programs is that we really are focused on that bigger picture and that strategic understanding of how cybersecurity and data privacy intersect with business objectives, or if you're in the government, with operational objectives in terms of what you want to do. Now, it's important to understand that what we do not offer is deep technical basic training that would allow you to go from having no technical expertise to taking on an entry-level technical cybersecurity position. That's really the province primarily, not so much of even degree programs, but of technical intensive training programs like the ones that SANS and other organizations offer. While we do give you a technical grounding and you don't have to have a technical background to be able to access this, we provide that bigger picture that'll allow you to progress your career and advance to a higher level of leadership, regardless of whether you're in a technical role, a compliance role, or some other role. And so that's really where we sit in this space. And it's really a unique combination of skill sets that's more intensive on that strategic, legal, and business side, but gives you the basic technical grounding. And go ahead to the next slide then, Julie. And so when we talk about the legal and policy dimensions of cybersecurity and data privacy, these are two prominent recent examples of how this field is rapidly evolving and really how privacy and data security are becoming integral aspects of compliance and strategic risk management for any industry. While the United States still lacks a federal privacy law, we're seeing at the state level, with California being the leader, a number of comprehensive consumer and other privacy bills being passed and implemented. CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, is now in force and being enforced. And then a couple of years ago, we saw the European Union's General Data Protection Regulations come on board. And while those regulations for US entities primarily affected multinationals and organizations with intensive European operations, it really kind of set the bar for other jurisdictions, including California, to begin to develop more comprehensive regulation. And then in addition to California, we've got Illinois, which has a Biometric Privacy Act, and then other states like Washington and even Ohio are considering developing CCPA style or CCPA light legislation. And so we're seeing these issues just get increasingly intense. And then in the current environment, it's really interesting to see, and I'm involved in a number of efforts with both government groups and private groups that are looking to GDPR and to a lesser extent CCPA as policy models for how we manage the privacy risks that are posed by using things like the contact tracing applications that have been in the news quite a bit, or other technologies that would allow us to reopen the economy by being able to quickly identify people who either are infected or at risk of infection and get them tested and quarantined. And even though we don't have comprehensive federal legislation and that many states lack something like CCPA, the CCPA and GDPR models are really driving the policy discussions around how we want to structure how data is collected and how it's used in this environment. And so worked with a number of privacy professionals who have told me that they're fielding calls literally daily from operational units asking them, hey, we're thinking about either using this tool or developing this policy. What do we need to know about privacy? So even though there's not a specific legal mandate to do that, on a policy level, privacy really is kind of having a heyday, happily, in the context of COVID response. Next slide then. And so with Career Outlook, it was already an impressive and heartening outlook for professionals entering this field. And I think we're just going to see that expand even further. This is some data, some statistics rather, that are now a little bit dated from CyberSeek, and they relate generally to cybersecurity. So they incorporate those entry-level jobs I mentioned before that we're not specifically geared to provide you the credentials for, but they also encompass the much broader picture and actually they leave out, because this is a statistic specific to technical cybersecurity and related jobs, they leave out the broader array of positions that relate to privacy more than security, and that fit more on a policy level. But it's just going to continue to grow. Next one, Julie. And so, as I already mentioned, and as this slide nicely summarizes, this program is going to give you a comprehensive picture of cybersecurity and privacy. We give you a technical grounding, although we don't go deeply into the technical side, and then we quickly move to that bigger picture, giving you a strategic understanding of how cybersecurity and data privacy both inform, limit, and enable business objectives, and then also give you a really deep skill set on the compliance side, and give you the ability to work with legal materials, to talk intelligently and strategically with both inside and outside counsel when developing both specific compliance policies, as well as thinking strategically, if you sit in a more technical role, about how an organization ought to configure itself and how it ought to manage the risks posed by these issues.
Great, Brian, thank you. And so I want to briefly go over, and I'm going to check real quick to make sure that there's no questions. So again, just as a reminder, if you have any questions at any time, please use the chat feature. But I'm going to briefly go over the program details and how the program is structured. So this program is designed to be part-time. It is fully online, and it's flexible in that you can start in any of the 3 semesters, the fall, spring, or summer. The next upcoming start date is September 8th for the fall semester. It's 30 credits total, which you can complete within 2 years. And like I stated before, it's 3 terms, so you will take the terms consecutively. So you will take, if you start in the fall, you'll take fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, for the total of 5 semesters. We have outlined the cost here and the tuition, and I am happy to schedule an individualized phone call or Zoom call with any of you to go over the tuition and financial aid information and that whole process. I am happy to walk you through that. So please, at any time, email me to set up a phone call or a Zoom call for us to talk about that one-on-one. And so here's our curriculum. And like I stated in the last slide, it's a total of 10 courses spread across 5 semesters, which equals 30 credits total. And the courses are built in an asynchronous and synchronous format. And so if you're new to online programs, that might sound confusing to you, so I'll go over that briefly. And what that means when something is asynchronous, that means that you kind of log on to your online class, complete whatever assignments or reading or lectures that are available to you for that week's class. So you do this on your own time, which is really nice, especially for working individuals. There are synchronous components to the courses, and so that might be a live course that is scheduled at a certain date and time. So you can log on, you can speak directly with your professor, directly with your other classmates. And so as you see, we have laid out all the courses here, and some of these are subject to change and can change around a bit. But Brian, since you are currently teaching in this course, I wanted to toss it back over to you to talk a little bit more about the curriculum and the courses in depth.
Sure, Julie. And so this program, as I said before, the core of it is taken from a certificate program that we developed originally for our Juris Doctorate program. And so all of the courses except Introduction to American Law and Legal Writing are courses that we have taught for several years within that Juris Doctor program. And we've now adapted them for the asynchronous online format in this new online MLS program. The Introduction to American Law and Legal Writing courses are the core courses that our longstanding MLS program uses to get students started within that program. But in that program, most of the students design their own track following the first semester where they take those two courses and pick and choose among upper level JD and other graduate courses. In this program, we've developed a tightly structured and deliberately structured program that will, as I said before, give you an introduction to the technical side and a strong technical grounding through Cybersecurity 1 and Cybersecurity 2, and then move into more in-depth upper level topics that cover some specific areas of both data privacy and cybersecurity, as well as general issues related to developing compliance programs around data security and privacy. And so what we did is completely restructure the Introduction to American Law and Legal Writing courses and to tailor them specifically to this program. And so the Introduction to American Law course I now teach and took over, and we use cybersecurity data privacy as a framework to look at core legal concepts, basic legal issues from torts to contracts to legislation and regulation. And throughout, we weave in examples from data security and privacy, which touches on all of those and many other areas. And likewise, legal writing, rather than focusing on preparing you to take upper level law school exams, we have an experienced graduate of our program who now works at a major law firm doing primarily incident response. And she teaches us from her perspective of working with non-legal professionals, what it is that she would like them to know and be able to understand when she's interacting with them in practice. And so those two courses we've created or recreated specifically for this. Cybersecurity 1 and Cybersecurity 2 were designed by my former colleague, Candace Hoke, who's a national election security expert, along with a deeply experienced Chief Information Security Officer, Bob Ekman, who continues to teach Cybersecurity 2 in this program. And we deliberately decided to make it a technical focus and to prepare both non-technical and technical people with technical and non-technical backgrounds to be able to understand cybersecurity. And so it's taught from that perspective. They're deliberately overlapping and tightly integrated so that you'll get introduced to the core concepts in Cybersecurity 1, and then you'll revisit them in Cybersecurity 2, but in the context of developing a technical set of controls as part of a group project for a business associate that has to comply with the major health, cybersecurity, and data privacy law, HIPAA. And then the third core course, which we introduce in the fourth semester, Privacy Law and Management, focuses more on the legal and policy dimensions of this, but it was developed for this program by another graduate of ours who developed Eaton Corporation's privacy program while he was attending night's class in our JD program. He's currently the chief privacy officer of Ingram Micro, which is a Fortune 14 or 15 company based in Silicon Valley. And so he teaches it from an operational perspective. He was a technical professional before he became a lawyer. And so he integrates both of those sides, but it's really taught rather than from a law by law perspective. It's taught from the perspective of a chief privacy officer at a multinational and what it is that that individual would have to understand and strategically how they would put together a privacy program that could comply with several different overlapping legal regimes. And so, and then the upper level classes go into various different topics more in depth.
Great, thank you, Brian. And we actually had a question that came through that I think this is a good time to answer it as we're talking about the courses. And the question is the cybersecurity about only law, or does it apply to other environments like business and organizations?
So Miriam, I'll try to answer that, but let me know if I'm not fully capturing what you're asking. The core cybersecurity courses, Cybersecurity 1 and 2, are general cybersecurity courses that are focused on the technical dimensions, although in Cybersecurity 2, you're looking at that as applied to a business associate, so an entity that's not a public health organization, but works with confidential private data that a covered entity, they call it a public health or health organization covered by HIPAA, would have to, and has to meet essentially the same requirements as that entity. And so in that respect, it integrates those. The upper level courses then are primarily focused on the legal aspects of data security and privacy, but most of them, and especially privacy law and management, are designed from an operational rather than a legal perspective. And so rather than using a casebook, for example, privacy law and management actually brings in a range of experienced professionals who serve in various privacy roles within large organizations to talk about how they manage that role and how they develop policies to meet different regulatory regimes. Now, some of the other upper level courses like Corporate Compliance 1 and 2 then are focused on very specifically on developing policies that can comply generally with a variety of legal regimes, including cybersecurity and data privacy requirements. And then cybercrime, for example, is focused on the legal aspects of various laws that govern, criminal laws that govern cybersecurity. And then the cybersecurity risk assessment and compliance course, that pivots more in the technical direction. And there, we're adapting that course from what is currently essentially a clinic where we team and Masters of Science of Information Systems graduate students with law students to go and do cybersecurity risk assessments for nonprofits. And we're essentially turning that into a more of a simulation course where you'll do something similar. You'll develop a risk assessment using the NIST framework, and but we'll use hypothetical organizations as opposed to real ones.
Great, thank you. And John, this might be a good time to answer this other question that we have that we get a lot, and I think it'll help answer your question as well, Miriam. John, can you talk a little bit more about what a Master's of Legal Studies degree is and why that sets you apart in the marketplace? And I think that'll help the question of does this cover different businesses and organizations that you don't have to use this in just a legal setting, for example?
Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes in academia or law school in particular, we get very caught up with acronyms. We've said MLS probably 100 times on this webinar, but in the real world, nobody knows what an MLS or an MDB or an LDB or an LLB is. And so sometimes people say, well, how do I market my MLS? That's the wrong question. The right question is, how do you share exactly how this master's degree is valuable to your employer? And master's degrees are the most common graduate degree awarded. Everyone knows their value. And in the case of a Master of Legal Studies, there's a particularly important point that you need to share with employers, which is it's granted by a law school. In this day and age in education, particularly in online education, there's a concern that online degrees or master's degrees are not rigorous enough in a particular program. That is something no one asks about a law school. Law schools are infamous for being rigorous and having high standards in work and grading. And so the moment that an employer hears that the degree granting institution is a law school, they have a much stronger sense of the degree's value and worth. They know that it wasn't handed to you, that there was hands-on elements to the training, that the professors, not teachers' assistants, are grading the material, that you had a real relationship with the faculty. So number one, a master's degree is something that every employer recognizes as being valuable. A master's in business is kind of looked at as the generic master's degree. But the Master in Legal Studies first is particularly valuable because it's granted by a law school, which is known for its rigor. And second, it's particularly valuable because more and more people are expecting and needing legal understanding in their positions. The reality is you cannot hire a lawyer or call a law firm every time a legal issue comes across your desk, and leaders and managers increasingly have to make calls with legal implications. Now, this is not a law degree. You're not going to be litigating cases, but if you're going to be a manager in a cybersecurity department, or if you're going to be making decisions about whether or not to purchase a new type of security software, you need to understand the legal risk and whether the reward is great enough. And that's what this program is about. We're giving you valuable legal knowledge from a well-known, rigorous institution. So instead of just getting a generic master's degree that, yes, will help you in your career, you're getting one that's directly applicable to the area of work you're interested in.
Excellent, thank you. If there's any other questions, again, please chat them. This is a great conversation. And so we'll move on from the curriculum, and I will go over the next steps. And so the application process is pretty simple. You will access the online application via our webpage, which is csulawonline.com. It is noted right here on this slide. All that we need from you for a completed application is a current resume, a personal essay describing how you plan to use this degree or what your motivation is for pursuing this degree. Is this a career change for you? Is this something that you're going to use to move up within your company? Just any information you can provide. And then official undergraduate transcripts. And so it's important to know also that if you graduated undergrad with a 3.0 GPA or above, we do not require a standardized test. And so again, this is a conversation that I love to have with applicants one-on-one to kind of talk about your application and talk about your previous work experience, maybe your undergraduate experience, and then the two of us can decide whether or not we think you need to take a standardized test or if we can present your file to the committee as is. And so our next intake for this program is in the fall, and that start date is September 8th. And applications for this upcoming fall 2020 are due August 10th. All of this is outlined here on this slide, but it is also on our webpage at, again, csulawonline.com. And here's my contact information. I have had the pleasure of speaking with many of you who are on the call here today, so you should have my email and phone, but it is here as a reminder. And please, I truly encourage you to reach out to myself, to John, to Brian, with any questions that you have. We are all here for you to make this process as seamless and as easy as possible. And we want to make sure that you feel comfortable with the decision that you make to start this master's degree program. And so now I'm going to turn it over to some more questions. And it looks like we have another one here. And Brian, I think this one is for you. So I'm going to read it and then I'll have you respond. And it's, I'm not currently working in a cybersecurity role. Will I be able to go into cybersecurity upon completion of this program? I think you touched on this a little bit, but can you elaborate?
Sure. As I mentioned when I was talking generally about the curriculum, this is not a program that's designed to allow you to take on an entry-level technical cybersecurity role. It is designed for individuals who either are currently working in an environment where they're increasingly encountering cybersecurity and data privacy, regulatory, legal and policy issues, or for individuals who see their career moving in that direction. And so if you're an IT professional who is thinking about moving into a leadership role, recognize you need to get an understanding of the legal and policy issues involved. It's excellent for that. If you are in a compliance role and you're increasingly seeing cybersecurity and data privacy issues and you want to get more in-depth understanding and position yourself again to be able to move into a leadership role, this is the program, or that is what the program is designed to do. And so unlike some other programs that'll give you those direct technical skills, and I apologize, my dog is barking, this program really is designed more for longer term career objectives. And so what we do when we talk to prospective students, really encourage you to speak to your current employer or talk to people who are in the fields that you're looking to enter. And as John mentioned before, explain to them that you're considering a degree from a law school, a master's degree. and how that would fit in and what, how they would view the value of that degree. But what we're finding in talking to a number of employers in these spaces is that they really recognize the value of this degree. It takes a little bit more work on your part to really explain that and to really understand the value yourself. And we encourage students, and we really talk to prospective applicants directly to help you think through what the value add is of this degree. But that's where we sit.
Great, thank you. And I'm just going to check the chat box one more time, but I believe that's all the questions that we had today. You guys asked some great questions during the webinar, and I truly appreciated the conversation. So if there aren't any other questions, then that will conclude our webinar for today. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to meet with us. And again, I truly encourage you to reach out to myself, to Brian, or to John. We are here for you. We'd love to talk to you more in depth about this program, about career opportunities, and advise you on whether or not this is the best fit for you. So before we sign off, I'll toss it to John first to see if there's any other things that you'd like to let our applicants know, or just wish them farewell for now.
Would really enjoy talking to you more about the Master of Legal Studies program and what it has to offer. So if any of you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. In addition to the email and the contact you see there, you can reach me at j.plecnik@csuohio.edu. All of my contact information is on the MLS's website. You can, of course, reach me or Professor Ray through Julie as well. We really look forward to answering all your questions and welcome you to Cleveland Marshall at Cleveland State University.
Great, thank you, John. And that is a great point. If you would like to speak with Brian or John personally, and you can't seem to find their contact information on our webpage, please email me and I'd be happy to put you in touch with them. Brian, I'm going to hand it over to you just one last time to close out and say anything else that you meant to mention, or just farewell to our applicants.
Just want to say thanks for taking the time to listen to the presentation, and absolutely would be happy to tell you more and do a one-on-one consultation if you're interested in learning more. Take care, everybody.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We hope to speak with you soon, and have a great rest of your day and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.